Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a bookshelf tour, which I'm very excited about. I love watching bookshelf tours, and this is one of the first videos I knew I wanted to film when I started a channel, but I knew I wanted to wait until after I had moved into the new house because at least half my books lived at my parents' house, and we're going to live there until I move to a house where I could have enough space for all of them. So now all my books are in one spot, and I'll be doing a bookshelf tour of my, library room. So the way I have it set up is by genre, and so I'm just going to start in one corner, starting with the bookshelf behind me, and just go around the room and just kind of show you what I have. Okay, starting with this shelf. Starting on the bottom here, I have these kind of like reference books, I guess you could call them. They're essentially all stuff I collected when I was younger, and just, I guess they're nonfiction, but they kind of feel more like reference kind of books than like narrative nonfiction that I've gotten from a myriad of places. And then we have my collection of Bibles that I've collected over the years. I went to a Christian school for 13 years, and as such have collected quite a few. Some of these were gifts, some were ones I got for different Bible classes at school. So next up, I have my actual nonfiction shelf here, organized by author. Definitely a range of things. And then here on this corner, I had these two children's classics, which are just these two little hardbacks. Oops. Those are just kind of here because I didn't really have room on the other classics shelf. And also as a little bit of a bookend for my collection of plays. And the majority of these were for English classes over the years. And then the top shelf of this bookshelf is my classic/general fiction, and I have this double stacked for room and also organized by author. And then this corner is the exception where I just kept my illustrated classics kind of together as like a series. I don't know if any of y'all ever had these as a kid, but these were big when I was a kid. And so I thought about having a separate classics and general fiction shelf, but one, I ended up not having two different shelves for that, and as well, there were some books that were like modern classics, stuff like The Kite Runner, that I was like, if it's a modern classic that I ended up reading for school, kind of feels like it should go to classics, but it's also like a modern fiction, so I ended up combining them. So this is just general contemporary fiction and classics. Okay, next we have this bookshelf, and at the top here, this is kind of a mess of a shelf because these are my husband's books that I kind of just put out of the way here, but and that's probably not going to be their final spot, but other than that, this shelf is my French shelf, so these are the books in French I've read, and then these are the books in French I have not read. Then here, this is kind of one of two kind of nitpicky genre shelves I had. This is like my middle grade and young adult adventure shelf. And so I have the first 11 series of Unfortunate Events, the first 39 Clues series, which freaking love these books when I was younger. Most of the Gallagher Girls series, which is about spies, high society, same author, kind of same thing. And Spiderwick Chronicles. This is definitely kind of a nitpicky genre of a shelf. But these books they stood out from like the general contemporary books I have in my mind, but they're not quite fantasy either. So I gave them their own shelf. Next I have my romance shelf, and this is a mix of young adult and adult, as is most of the shelves. The next shelf down is the only one where I separated middle grade and young adult as a genre, and the rest of them are combined. This is my mostly adult with a couple young adult romances thrown in. And then here, these stacked ones here are middle grade, and then there's a double stack behind it. And I kind of just chose favorites to put on this front stack, like The Wanderer by Sharon Peach was a favorite, the Regarding the Series, big favorite, Charlotte's Web, Miss Frisbee, The Rats of Nim, Babysitter's Club, Andrew Clement. So these were all some of the favorites of the middle grade I had. And then this over here is kind of just general, contemporary, general YA fiction. And then the last shelf over here is the shadow's kind of getting it, but this is my 56 book Nancy Drew collection. And then I have some Shelf Silverstein poetry books in the corner here, and then some kind of miscellaneous picture books and kind of like collectible magazines. Like I have one on D-Day. I have one that's an Atlanta Braves 2020 magazine, so kind of just a miscellaneous. Okay, next up we have my two fantasy shelves, and so these are also organized by author, and as you can see I kind of ran out of room up there, so I'm thinking about reorganizing them not by author, and just kind of like fitting series on what fits in what shelf, and hope maybe playing a little bit of Tetris to fit all the books on. But here's just a little brief overview of what I have. Yeah, I'm definitely unsatisfied with how these two shelves work because I did these last. I started from the bottom and went up. But yeah, here's some of the fantasy I have. And again, this is a mix of mostly adult and YA, and then I have a little bit of middle grade fantasy with my whole Rick Riordan collection. So I also was disappointed that I wasn't expecting these to completely fill up the shelves, partially because when I had all my books stacked around the room, I am really bad at seeing things and then estimating how much space they'll take up. And so I was not expecting to take up the whole thing, and I was really hoping I'd be able to do some of the books like, you know, like a front-facing book. Like I wanted to do one of these front-facing because I really love the cover. I was also wanting to do one of these two front-facing because I love the cover. There was one or two others, so yeah, disappointed I couldn't do that. Okay, next is my second nitpick genre, which is starting with Mockingjay and then going all the way down to this jar is my dystopian. I think it's all young adult dystopian. Because dystopian, I guess, is technically a sci-fi subgenre, but it feels like a different genre in my mind, so I end up just giving it its own space. But yeah, so those are the dystopians I have, followed by sci-fi. So yeah, and then here's my SciFi Shelves. But yeah, I also would have liked to be able to do a couple front facing out here because the cover of this book is beautiful, and I also really love the cover of this book. Like, oh, it's just so pretty. But alas. And at the bottom here, we have two Harry Potter Illustrated editions thrown in. My plan had been to have, like, the sci-fi stacked and then, like, a break and then have the Harry Potters, like, up here. But they were too tall to fit. This shelf was too short for hardback, so they're stacked this way instead. I have some paraphernalia on the side here. This is my mystery section, which is at least half media tie-in mysteries. We have in the corner over here, we have some of the Castle books, which tie into the detective show Castle, which I was obsessed with when it was on. And then the Monk books, which was another detective show. That's one of my all-time favorite TV shows. So a lot of media tie-in mysteries over here. And then over here, we have my historical fiction section. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with this, like, Dear America series here, where they're, like, journal entries from girls across different time periods, but I loved that series. This is also one of my favorite series. This Bloody Jack series is a young adult series about, like, a girl pirate, essentially. She's not totally a pirate, but she's kind of a pirate. We have a nice duster. And then we have my special editions shelf. And so all of these are very special editions, except this one, which is a second edition printing of Gone with the Wind that I inherited from my grandparents. And so that's not a special edition. It's just a really, really freaking old one. So I included it with my nice special edition shelves. And then down here we have my red Book of the Month books that I rainbow by this little color stripe. Those are all the ones I've completed. In this bottom shelf, we kind of just have two different mythology books that I have, and then a leather case from my e-reader. And then my last shelf is this little short one. So on the top shelf here, we have my TBR, which I've alphabetized by author and double stacked for space, and then it goes a little bit down here with 7 here. And then here is my Book of the Month TBR. So a little bit behind on my Book of the Month. I've been catching up a little bit, and then I had a big box last month, so a little bit behind there. On the bottom here, we have just some miscellaneous items, and then my manga and comics collection, which is not huge. I'm not super into either, but I did dabble a little bit in high school, wanting to get into a little bit, so I have a couple here. So yeah, those are my bookshelves, and I hope you had a nice time seeing what I had. If there's anything you thought was super interesting on my shelves, let me know. Some of this may be changing. I'm not totally satisfied with this shelf, and I think I might be unhauling some, so we will see. I'll see you in my next video.